Hey everyone, welcome to My Big Story with Christopher Swan. This is the weekly show where I talk with amazing people about their story. A story that includes creating a life that they love, living a life of intention, and where we can learn from their stories. On this episode is Jeremiah Pauley. Jeremiah is a spokesperson for the Wounded Warrior Project and a retired U.S. Army Staff Sergeant. In Jeremiah's current role, he helps to spread stories and information that can help U.S. veterans post the 9/11 era, helping to fulfill the objective of the Wounded Warrior Project. And his stories are all rooted in his own experiences, including a life-changing event in Iraq and how he found new meaning or his new why after leaving the Army. That's exactly why I wanted to talk to Jeremiah. He's not just pushing PR for his organization. He's talking about real experiences, the reality of depression, feeling lost, and how he found his way out of it. We talk about Jeremiah's story, the event in Iraq, his dark times, what it really means to look for work as a civilian with only Army experience, and he offers some really great practical advice. After our conversation, I have an entirely new insight to a world I didn't know a lot about, and a new perspective for individuals creating a life after their service. I definitely think you'll learn something new from him too, information that can even be applied to a life outside of the military. And Jeremiah, he's great. He's easy to talk with and very warm. I'm so glad we had a chance to tell his story. Everyone, meet Jeremiah. Jeremiah, it's great to have you here.
Thank you. Excited to be here, Christopher. Great to see you.
Good. Likewise. So I'm super excited for two reasons, really, about you being here. I think you have an important story to share, and I was really intrigued when I kind of learned about kind of your history and what you're doing. But the other thing, and this sounds probably kind of silly, but I love that you're local. Like, it's not often that I get to talk to people that live literally in the same town as me, especially a small town. So I think that's cool.
It's great. Yeah, Petaluma is such a great place, and I think we get kind of wrapped up into nationally what's going on, who's out there to inspire us.
Yeah.
And sometimes we tend to forget that there are so many great things going on right here in our own community.
Absolutely.
It's such a great town.
I think I'm going to jump into the Wounded Warrior Project. So you work for the Wounded Warrior Project. Look, I want to just set the stage for everybody. Like, what's your role and goal in working with the organization?
My role with Wounded Warrior Project is I am a spokesperson on the Warrior Speak team. Our team is combined of wounded warriors from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as some caregivers who look after family members that were wounded during those wars. And our role within the organization is to help raise awareness, to tell the population of the country what it is the organization do and how we serve those wounded warriors and their family members.
Is that specifically around, when you say the population, is it really around just the general population, or is it also really targeted on, you're looking for vets that maybe didn't know?
Absolutely. Part of it is letting veterans know that served post 9/11, what programs and services we have to offer them. And the other part of it is enlisting the community's aid and telling them, hey, men and women are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan with severe physical injuries, some with severe mental and emotional trauma, and this is how we assist them transfer, come back into civilian life.
Sure. Well, I want to go now a little into your story. I wanted to set that stage there so people could understand kind of this connection that we'll make later on. So I was reading, as I was researching some information about you, I was reading that you thought you were going to have this lifelong career in the Army.
Absolutely.
And, I know your story is going forward, but what I don't understand is, why did you think you were going to have this lifelong career there?
When I joined the Army, I was 20 years old, and I left college because I felt that sitting in a classroom just wasn't for me at that time. And when I joined the Army and I went to my first duty station, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, I felt like I was home, and I felt like I was a part of something bigger than me. And I met people who were devoting their lives to a cause greater than self. And I just found that truly humbling and thought, this is what I want to do with my life. I could envision myself serving in the Army for 20, 30 years.
What was it, when you talk about this greater than themselves, was that the draw? I mean, because the Army, you can do things like you could work for a volunteer organization and that would still be greater than, than self, giving back and stuff. But what specifically around the Army? Was it because it was patriotic around the country and supporting democracy and the way of life? I mean, was that kind of
that was
piped
definitely
into it?
part of it. As a kid growing up, my father would teach me about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and tell me about all these rights and freedoms that we have as Americans. It's because of these men and women who made the choice to serve,
sure,
and to protect those rights and freedoms. And that cause greater than self for me was, well, sure, I can go do community service. I can volunteer some time, and that's wonderful. But what about a way of life? When you look at some of the other countries that are very less fortunate than America is, and not only with the rights that they have, but the quality of food, the quality of work,
sure,
quality of life, whatever it is. I want to help protect what we have. Mm-hmm. And if that means that I have to be in the Army, then I'm going to do it.
So you were in the Army for quite a few years, and then it stopped all abruptly. And I mean, this is kind of the trigger to almost a new life. So there's a kind of an event that happened that ended your Army career. Could you tell me a little bit about the events that transpired that actually ended the career?
Sure. I was deployed to Talafar, Iraq. I was wounded by a roadside bomb, commonly referred to as improvised explosive device, or IED. And the bomb sent shrapnel through my right arm above the elbow and exited in the forearm. Very fortunate to have my right arm. But at that time, there was not a lot of surgery or physical therapy that could fix it to the point of being 100% rehabilitated. And so the doctors pretty much said, because of this injury and how significant it is, you're never going to be able to do push-ups. You're never going to be able to do certain physical activities. You're never going to be able to squeeze a trigger on a weapon. And I was an infantry guy. And so that's pretty important. That's a big issue. And so they said, we feel it would be best if we just separated you from the Army and gave you a medical retirement. And it was heartbreaking. It was pretty devastating.
And I can absolutely understand that, especially when you think about it as if I box it into kind of a career, but also being wounded. I mean, there's something that goes along with that. I could end a career at, I worked for the Walt Disney Company. I could end my career there and I could be like kind of bummed out about it, but it's a little different than, I'm wounded and I can't do this kind of way of a life I thought about. I think connected to that too, I was reading that it also was surrounded with, I think that you lost a soldier as well during that event, and then ending that career, it led into a time of, I don't know, I want to say depression and anxiety or darkness or something, but I'd love to know a little bit more about, so you end this career here, then what happened?
So if you can't imagine yourself, and I don't know what your title was for Walt Disney, but let's say it was an Imagineer. And this was,
I would love to say that.
And that was the one thing in your life that you were most passionate about. That was your why.
Yeah.
I think it was Mark Twain. He said, the two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day you find out why. Serving in the Army was my why.
Yeah.
And you take from being in the Army and then having a doctor, of all people, no disrespect to doctors, but a doctor telling you, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, one of your soldiers that you served with, he was killed. Mm-hmm. And the Army never teaches you how to deal with the death. Especially as a leader, you're looking after these people. You're looking after these soldiers. You're teaching them. You're training them.
Yeah.
They're your responsibility. And to have a death on your on your shoulders, you automatically assume that it's your fault.
Had you thought about that before? Even, I mean, if you're going into Iraq, during that time, like it's a possibility.
I think it's a thought, but I think it's a small one. The first thing that as a leader and as a soldier I was concerned about was taking care of my soldiers.
Right, the safety of them.
taking care of the mission, ensuring that what we were doing was what we were doing.
Yeah.
And making sure that our mission was accomplished. I think at the end of the day, there's always that thought in the back of your head. Okay, great, I made it through another day.
Yeah.
But what do I have to do tomorrow to take care of these people?
Sure.
How am I going to serve my country honorably tomorrow?
So then take me forward a little bit. So the doctor says, yeah, it's a no-go for you anymore. He's let you know about the soldier. And then what happens next? Well,
I stayed in the Army for about 11 more months, and I was going through physical therapy and occupational therapy and everything like that. Waiting, basically, there was a lot of paperwork that needed to be completed that was initiated from the medical board and the doctors. And I didn't think too much of it at the time, about, wow, this is gonna be really bad. I wasn't concerned about it. I had just had a daughter that was recently born. We were in the transition to moved here to California, to Sonoma County, and that wasn't really on my mind. It wasn't until I came home and became a stay-at-home dad,
like it was a reality,
that the culture shock really set in. I went from being in Iraq to being in a hospital to being a stay-at-home father to this little baby girl that just wanted to cry. Yeah, and I'm like, yeah,
what do I do?
What do I do? And what I thought was funny at the time was babies don't take orders very well. They don't.
And a great lesson.
I think there's a book in there maybe somewhere, but there was this culture shock from being a leader in the Army, to being deployed to a hostile environment, to the hospital, to coming home and not only trying to learn how to be a father, but just trying to adapt to civilian life in ways to where if a door would slam, it was a trigger response. And then all of a sudden the anxiety would shoot up. Or if I was at home alone, it was a depression because I missed the men that I had served with. I wondered what they were doing, if they were safe. Are my doors locked? I want to make sure no one comes in to hurt my family. Let me get up in the middle of the night. Sleep was really a luxury, not just because I was a new parent, but because as a combat veteran, I would have these terrible nightmares.
In this transition period as well, like when you're coming back and you're this stay-at-home dad with the new daughter, was that the plan? Was that I'm going to stay at home? Like that was on purpose to take some time off or to just really focus on family? Or did you have another plan after that? Like, was this a transition period or was this the plan?
This was just a transition period. My wife at the time, she was a nurse. So she was the one working, 3-4 nights a week or whatever the case was. And ideally, I think at the time I really wanted to say, hey, it's fine. I'll stay at home. What am I going to go do?
Yeah.
What? And that was my thought. Like, what am I going to go do to where I can find something just as rewarding as the Army?
Yeah, because, if you thought you were going to be there the whole time and now all of a sudden you're not, I would imagine what is it that I want to do? Not even just work that you're skilled at, but it's what answers the why in the same way. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. What can I find now?
Yeah.
What am I going to be passionate about now? I bounced around for a while. I had 5 different jobs in about 3.5-4 years, just trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do. And it was difficult. The transition period was not only difficult trying to find a job, but learning how to integrate with people, learning how to socialize with people that were not veterans. Learning this almost new language. It seemed like trying to talk to people.
Do you feel like that is normal? Like most veterans go through that experience?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the biggest problems that veterans face as they transition out of the military and go into the civilian workforce is so many civilians say, oh, we support the military and that's wonderful and that's great. But you can't really talk to a person who is a career office worker about your experiences in a combat zone. Those two types of those two types of work environments, they don't really compare. So for a veteran to sit down and say, oh, this one time in Afghanistan or this one time in Iraq, we were getting bombed and it was one of the most stressful days of my life. And you just heard this other person complain about spending 5 minutes in line, waiting for coffee.
Well, it's so interesting because you're saying it, and obviously I'm on the other side of that. So I'm like, what was really stressful that was compared to that? and I was like, well, I had these deadlines or whatever, but it's true. It's not like a life or death thing. It's almost, maybe they can't sympathize in the right way or understand. It's almost like the lack of language as well. Like,
it's a lack of language.
How do I translate these things that are comparable or that can relate?
It is. It's showing experience, but it's showing it in a way to where you could make deadlines, or you can meet deadlines. You can work in a stressful environment. Yeah. And I think, a lot of veterans, as they're making that transition, they don't know how to do that.
And do you think the people that, like, when you talk about like employers, non-governmental employees or employers, do they not know how to help transition as well? Like you mentioned, gosh, these employers say we do support the military, but do they not maybe have the skill sets or the tools to actually do it?
I think it's part of that. I think part of the issue is teaching employers what veterans bring to the workforce. Yeah. You have someone who is driven by values, driven by a strong work ethic, someone who has extreme experience working under pressure in intense situations, someone who is able to get along with anyone from any type of background.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Race, color, religion, creed, whatever you have. And employers see that, but then when they start looking at specific skills, depending on what that person's role was in the military, it's sometimes difficult to put that onto paper.
Yeah, I get that.
So when you say, oh, I was airborne infantry, I jumped out of airplanes and I went looking for bad guys. Okay, what in the civilian world is that going to qualify me to do?
We could probably come up with something, but I get it.
Okay, well, you could be a police officer.
Yeah.
Well, I was wounded. I can't chase down bad guys anymore. But I can sit behind a desk and answer phone calls. Oh, well, have you ever done that before? No. Oh, we need somebody that's qualified. Okay.
Well, back me into, does that connect also? Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to skip over this time period a little bit too, just to show a little emphasis of this. Jumping around with, different jobs and having this kind of experience of maybe things aren't translating. What do I actually want to do? What's going to fill the why in a new way? I mean, what was that time really like for you? Was it just tough? Was it frustrating? Was it darker than that?
It was stressful. It was a period of my first job after the Army. I was working loss prevention at Macy's, and I think that job lasted about 4 months, and it was stressful because coming out of the Army as a leader, now I've got a 19-year-old telling me how to do a job.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, this is new. This is different. Okay, I can listen.
Humility.
It is. It's big. And it's like, okay, this is not what I want to do, especially when you take into fact that I'm commuting 30 to 40 minutes to get there. Oh. I'm only making...
Yeah, not much for that, probably.
Not much a lot. I'm not really making good money, baby at home, wife is making plenty of money. Oh, I ended up working late because we busted somebody that was trying to steal. So now I'm messing up her schedule. Yeah. Very stressful. Why stick around for that? And not to mention it wasn't the Army. And I think I was really comparing that job to the Army and to the people that I served with. And
did that continue on? Like with the different jobs, like this comparison?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. It continued on and I thought, one of the things I did in the Army that could easily translate into the civilian sector was recruiting. I could go become a recruiter. And I did.
Army recruiter?
I was an Army recruiter for a brief period of time. And I said, I can go become a recruiter. And so I became an executive recruiter, a headhunter. And
so to speak.
So to speak. That's right. Yeah. Interesting. I like that. I never thought about that before.
Really?
That's fantastic.
I'm here all week.
Nice. And that job was stressful because of the added sales portion to the job.
Sure.
You know, it wasn't just, find a candidate to fill this role. It was call new companies and get their business so we have more business. We have more roles to fill. So that became stressful.
Sure.
And that was my first out of the Army, 8 hour a day, 40 hour a week. Like, oh my God, I'm really like,
like, is this it?
Like, is this what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was exciting. The bonuses were nice.
Sure.
But the rest of it was just like, oh, okay.
Now what?
Now what?
Yeah.
And so that was stressful.
So what transitioned? What happened? I mean, this went on for a while, but like, you know, I know you're with obviously we talked about the Wounded Warrior Project. What got you out of that kind of frustration with the why and the what's next, and where'd you go?
I went through a very dark time mentally and emotionally, to where I thought there's this big void in my life. Something's missing. And combine that with the guilt of losing a soldier, I really wanted to kill myself. I was just in this deep dark hole, and I just didn't see any escape except to doing that. And all of that negativity and all of that selfishness, if you will, I think just led to this downward spiral that led to a divorce. Led to me. One night I decided that's what I'm going to do. I am going to kill myself. And so I decided to go out that night and celebrate. I finally had a plan. I got excited that I knew that I was going to kill myself the next day. And so I went out to party.
Wow.
And I got into a lot of trouble. And I came home the next morning and I went to sleep. And I woke up later that afternoon. There was a voicemail on my phone. And it was from a lady by the name of Megan from Wounded Warrior Project. And she said, I want to send you to a program called Soldier Ride. It's in Phoenix, Arizona. 2 months later, I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and I met some of the most amazing people that work for this organization.
Did they just call you out of the blue? I mean, how do they know to call you?
Well, one of our programs is a backpack program. And this backpack program was started when wounded veterans are coming back to the hospitals in the States from Iraq and Afghanistan. Wounded Warrior Project gives them a backpack, and in the backpack is a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, and a pair of socks, deck of playing cards, a calling card for them to call family members. Just these everyday comfort items, things
right.
Most people would just take for granted. And when they do, they say, hey, do you want to become, an alumni of Wounded Warrior Project? Sure. They take down your address and your name and your phone number. Great. We'll be in touch. If we can do anything for you, here, give us a call. Had the backpack, had the t-shirt, all those years. Didn't really think too much about it. The organization at the time was small, so out on the West Coast, out in this area, there was not much opportunity to get involved until that day. Come to Phoenix. Wow, okay, I'll go to Phoenix.
And was it a gut reaction of, yeah, I'm going to do this? I mean, because you had this plan the night before.
I was very reluctant.
Yeah.
Why do I want to go to the desert, first of all? Why do I want to go ride a bicycle? What's that going to do for me?
Yeah.
How is that going to benefit me? But this part of me felt like I need to get away. I need to escape for a few days. I do need to get away from everything that was going on, personally at home. And riding a bicycle, like this is one thing that truly riding a bicycle saved my life.
Sure. Was it also, I would imagine you would have made, these relationships there or connections or,
absolutely.
Or at least, or maybe now in addition to that, so others are feeling the same way as I am.
I did not feel alone.
Yeah.
I felt like there were people that understood me because there were warriors there that were going through very similar experiences. There was staff there that worked for Wounded Warrior Project who not only had those same experiences, but now were doing these great things with their own life. I met a Marine leg amputee that climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Like, wow. And look at what he's doing. He's this big positive role model. And his physical injuries far worse than mine.
Sure.
Mental and emotional, very similar, but he didn't quit. He didn't let that stop him. He just kept moving. And so some of the warriors that I met that weekend became my very best friends. Two of them were groomsmen in my wedding.
Wow.
A guy that I met a year later, he was a groomsman in my wedding. All these people that I met through the organization not only became my friends, they became my family. And so now if I'm having a difficult time or I need some motivation, I call one of them.
Sure.
And vice versa.
So you go to Phoenix, you do this bike ride, you meet these, people that are similar or have similar situations. How does that translate to the new purpose for you? Meaning, I can see that you were fulfilled. Like, meaning, you weren't alone and you could see there's some inspiration there. How did that turn into a new why for you?
And this is what's great about the mission of Wounded Warrior Project is to honor and empower wounded warriors. I left that weekend empowered and said, I need to change my life. I need to sit down and come up with a plan and find out how I'm going to do it. Now, that was 2011. And I said, I'm going to find a way to work for this organization. I'm going to go to work for this organization, and I'm going to do for others what they've done for me. But first, I thought, I've got to get back into doing something that I really like. And at first, it was cycling, and then it was going to the gym and exercising, and it was, now that the Wounded Warrior Project is growing here in this area, I'm going to put myself into these situations where I'm around others. That way, I don't feel alone. Did my resume, applied for a job, applied for another job, applied for another job with Wounded Warrior Project. I was under consideration. I was at, I think, my fourth interview for one position, which was an outreach coordinator here for Northern California. And my best friend, he called me up one day, and he was one of the men that I met that weekend. He said, hey, I've got my final interview in Jacksonville, Florida, where our headquarters is, later this week for this job for Wounded Warrior Project. I was like, brother, that's fantastic. Congratulations. He's like, yeah, well, they've got the same opening right there where you are in Northern California. I think you should apply for it. I said, oh, well, what's the job?
Yeah. He
said, oh, it's a spokesperson. I'm like, well, what in the world is that? He's like, you travel around and you tell people your story. Like, you mean give speeches? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I could do that.
I just loved you're like, oh, I could do this.
I can do that. I can give speeches.
Yeah.
I talk all the time. Why not? And so I called HR, and 2 weeks later, I was on a plane headed to Jacksonville for my final interview. And as they say, the rest is history. Wow. That was a little over 4 years ago.
Wow.
And I think the people who have stood by me through all this negativity that I went through, this downward spiral in my life, have seen the change in my attitude and in my demeanor. And the way that I interact with others, how much happier I am.
Yeah.
My children have seen it. They've seen me change. And, I tell people, and I'm not afraid to tell people, that I wasn't always a good dad. I was physically present.
Yeah.
But I wasn't always there. Mentally and emotionally, I wasn't there for them.
Sure. It'd be tough to be.
If
you're not there for yourself, how can you be for somebody else?
Of course. And people will say, like, man, I see the smiles on your kids' faces now compared to 6-7 years ago, completely different. Like, they really love you. Like, they're happy to be around you. They're happy that you're here.
Sure.
And I'm like, good. Then I'm doing something right, because my passion, my why, was right there in front of me all along. Right. I just didn't know it. It's my kids. That's first and foremost in my life.
How did you realize that? Was it that you finally were able to come out of that kind of that dark spot because of the things that you were experiencing, that you could actually now see them like in a new way?
I think coming out of that dark spot, and when I came home from Phoenix, and when I said I need to change my life around, I actually went to counseling and took it serious enough for me to benefit from it. And I spent more quality time with them, trying to understand what it is they need out of a father. Mm-hmm. And I thought back to when I was a child, what did I need from my own dad?
Sure.
And it wasn't anger. It wasn't no. It was this love, this emotion of what is it you're going to need to succeed? Because I don't want you to ever have to feel like I did, where I wanted to end my own life. Mm-hmm. So I need to make sure that you're happy and healthy. Mm-hmm. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to get down on the floor and play with you. Mm. We're going to go out in the backyard and we're going to play. We're going to go to the park. We're going to play. Smile, smile, smile.
Sure.
And yeah, it was that want to change. It was that desire to change.
Do you think that's what's really kind of missing in this whole experience for people that are kind of going through this? Like, I think about the veterans that are coming out of this, coming out of service, they're trying to, get back into this new life, and they're so dark or so in this spot that's maybe doesn't resonate or translate, that they can't even figure out that part. They can't have that desire anymore. Like, the desire is missing because they can't even connect with people. So they're just kind of lost in their own thing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems veterans face as they transition out of the military, is once you experience that traumatic situation, whether it's combat, or something else in the military, you come back home and you miss that excitement. You miss...
It's almost like a high.
You miss that high. You miss it. And there's really nothing that can fill that void now.
Like everyday life just isn't cutting it.
It's just not cutting it. It's just not at that level. So what are you going to do with your own life to fill that void now? And so finding that want and that desire, it's difficult for some.
And I think what's interesting is the way that you just verbalize that. I would almost imagine that if you're just coming out of service, you're not verbalizing it like that.
It's no, absolutely
right.
Not.
It's not like they're like, I'm looking for that high, like that extreme, that interesting. It's more like, this isn't working and I don't know what to do next.
Now you'll see some veterans that once they transition, they do amazing things.
Sure. I don't want to generalize for everybody, but
right. But yeah, there's, what am I going to do with my life now that the military is no longer a part of it?
What about for you now? Like, so you've been doing this for quite a few years. I kind of think about this theme for you. You like to connect, obviously, but it's like there's helping. Helping seems to be a theme. Like you want to help motivate people, inspire people, feel the way that you felt when you had that aha and that sort of thing. So what does that look like for you in the future? Are you looking for more to help more in new ways, bigger ways, new things?
Absolutely. I want to become, one of those motivational speakers, one of those inspirational speakers, and just be able to share my story with people.
What people can't see is that you're like smiling ear to ear as you're saying that, by the way.
Yeah.
Because that just makes you really happy. You can tell.
Absolutely.
And why does that make you so happy?
There's the thrill. There is this thrill from standing on stage in front of people that is better, I think, than anything I've ever experienced.
And why is that? Is that because you're on stage, or is it about the people?
Because every once in a while, you'll have someone come up to you and say, because of you, I didn't quit. And if I can do that, because I know I have people like that in my life, and if I can do that for someone else, wow. Yeah. Combat?
Right.
Who needs that? If I can help someone, if I can tell someone my story, and they're maybe not even a combat veteran. They're just somebody that's working 9 to 5 and maybe feels overwhelmed by it, and maybe feels like, if I have to stand in line one more time, and they hear me speak, I'm not going to quit now.
Yeah.
I'm going to change a few things, but I'm not going to quit now because of you. That's a thrill.
Yeah.
That's helping. That's service.
You mentioned earlier too, there were people in your life that are like that for you.
Absolutely.
Who are those people?
One of the guys is my friend Devin. He was my best man at the wedding. He was one of the men that I met in Phoenix He and his brother are both combat wounded veterans. And his brother is a quadriplegic, and he's in a wheelchair. And his mom is his own caregiver. And his entire family, was there that weekend. But Devin pedaled his brother on a special built tandem bicycle that weekend. And just to see that was pretty inspiring, just to be moved by that, like, wow. And the whole time, his brother's name is Eric. Eric was just smiling ear to ear and just, happy to be around people, just on a bicycle. That's what he wanted to do, was be on a bicycle. And so yeah, Devin's one of them for sure. I've made countless friends through the organization. They're all programmed into my phone. They're all Facebook friends.
Sure.
These people, they call me out. Hey, how's the kids? How's the wife? What are you up to? Where are you traveling to this week?
Are those the people also that like not just you can check in with, but energize you?
Oh yeah, energize me. You know, because it's and some of them aren't veterans at all.
Sure.
But they excite me because they have this personality, this hey, what's going on? What are you up to?
Yeah.
Who? Me? What? I'm good. They excite me. They make me feel like what I'm doing is good and what I'm doing is fun because they believe in it and they believe in me. And they're passionate.
It's interesting. It just makes me think about, because I don't really know you, so I can reflect on it maybe in a different way, but there's this, I don't know who says it. It's probably one of those horrible inspirational quotes online or something, but it's something about like be around the people that, you want to emulate or something. But I think there's a lot of truth in that and what I'm just hearing, because you're talking about these people that are like super jazzed and really passionate and excited, and they're energetic in you. Like they are interested in you. And that's exactly what you want to do for others on a stage or in other ways. So it is interesting, like that's full circle to me of like, oh, you're being around the people that you really want to be around or be like.
Absolutely. You have to surround yourself with the type of people that you want to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time is I want to be around super excited, passionate, happy people. I don't want to be around those people that are in the room that just want to keep to themselves, don't want to be outgoing, don't want to have a conversation. I'm the guy in the room that will go up to you and try to talk to you for a little bit, just to get you to come out of that shell, just to chat with you, just, hey, what's going on? How come you're not over here hanging out with us? We're talking about, the latest trend on what's trending on Twitter and, all that good stuff, and check it out. Oh, look at this funny meme. This is great. Here's over. Come on. Come hang out with us. Let's go.
Clearly an extrovert.
Yeah. Just let's go. Let's go have some fun. Yeah.
All the introverts in the room are like cringing.
They are. They're just like, oh man, I never want to see this guy.
Please
ever.
Go away.
Yeah. And it's funny you bring that up because I think for such a long time, I was an introvert. I was a shy kid growing up. I was not outgoing. I wasn't very popular. I wasn't, part of the cool kids group, and, I didn't play sports and all that. And even in the Army, I wasn't one of the cool soldiers in the Army. I was, had my own little group of friends or whatever. I was never this big extrovert that I am today. I was always just, I was that person in the room, just kind of hanging out, just relaxing to myself.
You're like this learned introvert or extrovert rather.
I'm like, is that a term? I'm an extroverted introvert. Maybe
there
that's
there is now.
There is now. We can coin that.
I literally just read something about that the other day. Well,
I think I did too. Yes, I did. Yeah, and I'm like, wow, that sounds like me.
Here's what I've been thinking a lot lately. They're just labels. It's like anything, right? You're just going to be who you are and find your energy and your power wherever that comes from and use it, however it works.
Yes, be you, be passionate.
Yep.
And, my father used to tell me that if you're ever in the position to help someone, you should do it. And I think there's another quote out there that goes something like, do something for someone every day that can never repay you. And if you can do that, then you're living a good life. Any
advice for someone, and this is going back to maybe that darker period, Any advice for anybody that's maybe struggling through anxiety or depression, service or non-service, that you would offer for them to, like, maybe just a clue or something to help them find a way out?
I think in general, it's very easy for anyone to complain or to be negative. And I think one of the first things you can do, whether you're dealing with anxiety, depression, is to go a day without complaining about anything. See how that makes you feel. Don't worry about the past. Don't get too excited about what's going to happen in the future. This is one moment right here. Live in it. Own this moment. Take this moment. What do you want to do with this moment? Right now, what do you want to do? You want a cheeseburger? Go get a cheeseburger. You know, you want to watch TV? Watch TV. But this is your moment. Take it. Own it. This is your life. Find a support group. You know, find someone who has shared similar experiences. You know, find someone that you're comfortable speaking with openly about what it is you're feeling. A person, just one person. Doesn't even have to be a group. Maybe there's a hotline you can call that's 24 hours a day, or find someone else in your life to talk with. Don't hold it all in. Let it out. Find ways to get it out. If talking to someone in a group or one-on-one isn't, maybe try writing what you're feeling down. When I first started to say, okay, I want to get all of this anxiety, all this anger out of my mind and out of my heart, I started writing all my experiences down. And once I got it out of my head, and once I got it onto a piece of paper and I read it, I'm like, wow, maybe I could write a blog.
Wow.
Maybe.
So it wasn't even just that you just found maybe relief in getting it out of your head, but it gave you a glimpse into trying something new?
It gave me the opportunity to do something I never thought I could do. Oh, I could write I wonder if any of my fellow veterans would read this and find it motivating. Let me do it. Let me put it out there. And I think when I put it out there and I became vulnerable, you know, to anyone seeing and reading how I was feeling and what I was going through, it was kind of like, well, it's out there now. What's the worst they're going to do? Are they going to label me? Are they going to judge me? Probably not, because they're probably feeling the same way.
It's actually really courageous to be vulnerable like that, but it turns into a real strength.
I think it is, but I think I think you need to be careful with it. You know,
how so?
Well, I think if someone's putting themselves out there to be vulnerable, you know, God forbid. I mean, unfortunately, we live in a society where it's easy to label people, and it's easy.
Didn't we just do it earlier with extroverts?
And it's easy for some to want to attack people verbally. And I would hate for anyone to put themselves out there and be attacked for it. You know, I would hate to see anything like that. That's absolutely terrible. But I think that's a risk that you take when you're trying to become vulnerable.
What about advice for friends and families of people that have just exited, personnel out of the service? Any advice for them about, like, how to help their loved one transition better, or how to support them in a better way?
My first thing would be, you know, find a veteran service organization that resonates with them. You know, help them find something they can get excited about. You know, whether it's you know, sporting events and activities, exercise. You know, maybe it's riding a horse, maybe it's surfing, whatever the case is. Help them find something that they can do outside of the home, to where they're just not sitting on a couch watching television all day.
Sure.
Get them up, try to get them active, get them to move around, get them to talk to someone about something other than negative issues. Get to talking, have a conversation, because that's where everything's going to start. All the healing is going to start with just one simple conversation.
Well, I think this has been really insightful for me. I gotta say thank you for being here and having the conversation.
Thanks for having me, Christopher. I had a great time.
If people want to follow along either with you and your story or with the Wounded Warrior Project, how could they do that?
You can go to woundedwarriorproject.org for our organization. A lot of great information there about all the programs and services that we offer. I have a professional page on Facebook I typically use for when I'm traveling and to promote different veterans issues and things like that. And that's just Jeremiah R. Pauley on Facebook. And woundedwarriorproject.org, I think, again, is an excellent resource for post 9/11 veterans and their family members and caregivers. So definitely check that out.
Great. And we'll include all of that in the show notes and also on the website as well. Great. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Christopher.
So what'd you think? Any new ideas? Are you going to try something new? I'm always left feeling great and have a ton of ideas after these conversations. The guests are totally energizing me. Speaking of being energized, did you guys know about my Awesome Finds newsletter? Each week I share creative spotlights, meaningful stories, and new ideas to spark your imagination. And the reason I'm really doing it, I just want to share the great stuff in the world that energizes me to energize you. So if you want to sign up or you want to find out more information about it, go to awesomefinds.info. That's AWESOMEFINDS.info. Okay, back to the show. If you want to share thoughts about the guest or how the show sparked a new idea, I'd love to hear about it. You can call me and leave me a message at 1-707-347-9312. Just include your name and a brief message, and you may even be featured on the next show. If you want to follow along with me and see behind-the-scenes fun and my adventures, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at @MeChristopher. That's MECHRISTOPHER. You can also follow Accidental Information on Instagram and Facebook at Accidental Information, and on Twitter at Accidental Info. Also, we publish original articles weekly about following your passions, getting creative, and a lot more, all at accidentalinformation.com. Lastly, if you love the show and want to spread the goodness, go tell a friend about it. As in literally text someone or go email it to them. I'd love it. Also, make sure you subscribe to receive new episodes automatically each week. Thanks again for joining the conversation. Okay, that's it. We'll talk again next week.